Hey everybody, thanks for joining us tonight. This should be an awesome event. While we're kind of going through just a couple things real quick. First off, thank you to our friends at Ref Masters for allowing us to host this. And thank you to these three wonderful guys for joining me. We've got Don, Kellum, and Derek joining us here tonight. So this is our first webinar. If you have any questions at any time, please drop them down in the chat. We want this to be interactive, and I promise if we don't get to it, I will get back to you guys, and these guys might answer it as well. Okay, so a little bit about Runnin Ref for anybody who's unfamiliar. So we are an app-based strength and conditioning program that has been designed specifically for you, the officials. So we're 2 years in, and we are learning all the time. But I want to give you guys just a little bit of background so you know where some of this info is coming from tonight. Okay, I spent 9 years as a collegiate strength and conditioning coach, specializing in speed development, on-field movement, team conditioning sessions, and led return to play programs where I spent a lot of my time with doctors, surgeons, physical therapists, so on and so forth. So over a decade of knowledge and learning has now gone into providing officials with the care and support that you need from a physical performance and injury prevention standpoint. So, now that we've kind of gone through that, I need to share my screen and let us get started here. Sony, correct me if I'm off here at any point.
No, absolutely. That's great. I'm just going to put one question in the chat. As Austin is going through tonight's session, if you have questions or comments, do engage with us in the chat. I'm putting a question in there right now, and as Austin is getting started here, let us know in the chat what you're most interested to learn about tonight, because Austin and the panel are going to touch on a range of subjects. So he's going to cover a lot, but it could be helpful to hear about particular things that we might want to spend a little bit more time in. But you're right on target with Austin. I'll pass it back to you.
And we are shared, right, Sony?
Yeah, that's right.
Screen is good to go, Sony, right? You can see it all?
I can't see your screen share yet. You got to enable that.
Okay. Here we go.
Got it?
All right, here we go, everybody. We got it now. Okay, so we went through the intro. I'm strength training for officials. We're going to talk for 25, 30 minutes. It's going to be some really cool, hopefully some stuff that teaches you some things you can take away from you. We'll have a little bit of time here at the end for some closing remarks and a little Q&A, and we're going to hear from our three amazing guests here tonight as well, okay? So the topics we're going to cover tonight: why strength training is important for officials, the common injuries that we see with officials, how you can stay mobile and get stronger at the same time, what contrast training is and why it's the best option for an official, how to truly build muscle, and then some exercises that we really want to stay away from to stay healthy as officials. So there's three main reasons why we believe strength training is very important for officials. Number one is injury prevention. I think everybody in this, would say they've had nicks, bumps, and bruises at some point, and we got to stay on the pitch, on the field, on the court. So you want to stay away from these injuries. Second one being strength training assists your athleticism, right? It's giving you tools in your toolbox to become a better official. And lastly, the elephant in the room, you want to look the part. So I think everybody knows, how you get judged as soon as you walk onto the field or the court in a game. And it's just important, the more and more people that we talk to and the more and more we go through this, okay? So as we, start this right here, we want you guys to be engaged with this as well. So please, this is a great opportunity for you guys to answer this question as our panelists are going to, get started tonight. So how important is strength training for officials? And please get us started in the chat there. But I'm going to open up first. Kellum, do you want to, get started? And then Derek and Don, you guys want to follow along with this question?
Well, the obvious answer is it's important. We're on the field or the pitch or the court every play. We don't get subbed out. Sometimes I wish I could, depending on the game and the score, but we've got no time off. So having that strength and stamina is extremely important. So we got to start strong and finish strong.
Yeah, that's awesome. Derek, why don't you go next?
For me, when I met Austin, I did all sorts of kinds of workouts, things you find on the internet, things that, may not be as center focused on what we do as officials. Us in basketball refereeing, as I'm sure people in the chat can say, we do all sorts of different kind of movements that you don't normally do and that normal workouts don't work for. So this strength training part, the stuff that Austin provides, has helped me. I actually went to him after I had a pretty significant knee injury that cost me almost a season, and working with Austin has really benefited me, and I have had my best season since I started with Austin. And so strength training definitely throughout the season. I know we'll get to it, but in season training, honestly, to me, is probably the most important thing, and it's important for us to stay on the court.
Don, what do you got for us?
Yeah, Austin, can you hear me better now?
Yes, you sound a lot better.
Thanks. Yeah, sorry about that, guys. I apologize. Yeah, no, look, hey, strength training is a huge part of this. Look, and I agree. I'm 51 years old. Been in the game for about 30 years as a referee now, and I always incorporated strength training in off season, but not in season. And usually leading up to the season, I backed away from it really hard. And what I've found since I've moved over to Runnin Ref is adding a strength training in preseason, postseason, during the season is just as important. Like, it's been a huge benefit for me over the past 2 years, 18 months, I think it is. And look, I noticed a huge difference in this season alone. So yeah, the strength training is just magnitudes ahead when you're doing the right training. And I think that is the most important part. We're not in there trying to be power lifters or anything of that nature. It's very, very much isolated on certain body parts, certain movements that are going to help us run faster and be better on the courts. And I agree, from a stamina point, it just makes life easier.
Yeah. So here's as we get into the injury prevention part. That was the first one. So the most common injuries we see with officials. Number one is the hamstring. Second one, patella tendonitis. And the third one could go into a couple different categories, but Achilles tendonitis is the one we're really going to highlight tonight. So again, you have another opportunity here to drop in the chat. If you've had any of these injuries over the last season, drop it in the chat. Tell us how it happened. There's probably other officials that have struggled with the same thing, and we're going to dive right in right now and talk about how we can prevent some of those in means with the gym. Okay. So first one being the hamstring. There's a multitude of ways that we could go about this. There's not one certain thing that predicts hamstring injuries. It could be fitness level. It could be dehydration. It could be weakness. It could be a ton of different things. We can't solely say what it is. But when we start to get into the gym, we can definitely start to find some ways to go about training for this. Okay. So again, there's a ton of different variations for training the hamstrings, the posterior chain, and the backside. So in this video, you're going to see a lot of different exercises. You'll see some barbells, some kettlebells. You'll see some dumbbells. Right now, the biggest thing that you have to understand about hamstring injuries is you still want to be able to train around it, because if you can't run, if you can't move, you can't officiate the game. So these give you options, right? You need to pick the exercises that give you the biggest bang for your buck and the least risk possible to go out there and officiate, right? I mean, we're not any of us getting any younger. We don't want to pick exercises just for an ego contest, okay? So right now you're seeing some exercises that are called, a hip hinge, all right? And all that means is that I'm starting at the hip joint with this exercise. It's not really a bending of the waist, but what it is it's working on the hip joint where the hamstring ties in up there. Now we move on to some knee flexion exercises. So a lot of these exercises, some of you probably do. Some are more advanced, some are a little bit simpler, but now the hamstring also attaches behind the knee. So we have to train the hamstring from both sides of it if we really want to optimize health, okay? And again, some of these are very similar, but just with different games before training in rehab settings. You can use some of them that are a little bit easier if you're training around injuries and trying to get rid of that injury bug, okay? So we wanted to give you a ton of different options right there where you can see all of this. And again, we'll send this out as soon as we upload the recording here in the next couple of days. So you'll be able to utilize these and see these exercises for yourself in the future and hopefully implement them in your program to make yourself better. One we're going to go on to is patella tendonitis. So oftentimes when people talk about patella tendonitis, the first thing everyone tries to tell you is that you need to rest. Well, rest is only half of the battle. I still need to restructure the tendon. I still need to heal the tendon. I still need to load it and strengthen it as well. So rest is not a long-term solution. Ice is not a long-term solution. We have to do things that support the muscles, the tendon itself, and ligaments that are surrounding. And that's how we're really going to get rid of tendonitis, okay? So here's a couple things when dealing with tendonitis. First off are some accessory exercises. So I'll run through this one twice, but you'll see some banded exercises and different things. The biggest thing that we're trying to do with these specific exercises, again, are preparatory or extra. Accessory means extra exercises, so they're not going to solely solve your problem. Again, you get many options here. You don't have to do all of these in one session, in one training cycle, but they're giving you tons and tons of options to where you can deal with your patella tendonitis and train through it or solve it yourself, okay? And these specifically, we're working on targeting that VMO or that teardrop muscle. What that muscle does is it actually helps stabilize the kneecap. And if you know where the patella is specifically, it is part of your kneecap, okay? It's a tendon that runs under it. So after we move on from that, you know, single leg exercises are a huge part of this, okay? So single leg exercises, the biggest thing that separates them from double leg exercises is that now I can start to address some asymmetries. If I have a left leg that's stronger than a right leg, and maybe I'm favoring it, whether it's in my movements or in game, and now I'm developing some extra quad issues or extra movement issues, and now that knee is just taking all of the force. So these exercises give us a variety of options to really target, again, that VMO, but that leg's a chain, okay? And as we spoke about a minute ago, you've got to restructure and do some work on that tendon. So you'll see some load that's added to these. The other thing that's beneficial about all of these exercises is that they're partial range of motion. So I may not be able to tolerate full range of motion squatting. I may not be able to tolerate X, Y, and Z, but I can do some of these and I can train around the injury. That's one thing that I think the more officials I talk to have to understand, is that just because something aches, pains, or hurts doesn't mean you have to stay away from it completely. You can still train through it and you can still do some things that are beneficial. And we'll talk about this with other parts of the body as well tonight, but loading that tendon is a big deal. So being able to add weight over time is the same things that you do in physical therapy anyway. This stuff is just on the front side of it and you're handling it yourself. Now, a couple other things that are very beneficial is we talk about restructuring the tendon. Everybody has heard about eccentric training and isometric training, I'm sure. So putting some slow tempos on some of these exercises does help restructure and help the tendon regrow, okay? Pauses will give you the ability, actually it acts as an inhibitory effect, which it relaxes the tendon. So if you ever have patella tendonitis and you want to squat, or you want to try to squat, or you have that programmed on a day, you might try it with a pause where you completely eliminate all movement and then go through the motion, because more times than not, that will help. It's going to relax the tendon in the bottom of your range of motion, and then it's going to give you the ability to continue to train. So again, these are just tools in your toolbox for you to take with you, okay? And then lastly, when dealing with patella tendonitis, deceleration. I cannot state how important this is for you. Basketball officials will have over 100 possessions per game. Football officials will have over 140 snaps per game. Soccer officials, now we're gaining some true GPS data that's telling us this. We're averaging with our soccer officials over 20 hard stops in a game. You don't get that just by going on long runs and doing some simple exercises. You have to train that. So what deceleration is, you're training braking strength. You're giving your body the ability to absorb force and to keep yourself safe. So you've seen some exercises that are in a gym. You've seen some exercises that are on the field. Now, I may not have access to those. Okay, there's other options. There's other things that I can train and get as close to the specific movements that I'll need in game in the weight room. So you can do a lot of these things, and I can't understate how important deceleration training is in small spurts, even year round. We try to keep those in our program year round because they are so, so important for officials to keep you safe and healthy. Now, common injury seen with officials, the last one. This is often the one that scares most officials. We're talking about Achilles tendonitis, but really we could put in this category everything from the knee down. So that could be calf strains. That could be, again, Achilles tendonitis, plantar fasciitis, could be turf toe. It could also be the scariest one, which would be an Achilles rupture. We want to stay away from those, obviously, to stay in the game as much as we possibly can. So talking through some Achilles prevention here. Here's a couple prep exercises, and this one's really short, so we'll go through it a couple times. You have two different calf muscles. So whenever you train with your knee straight, you're hitting one calf muscle and you're hitting the Achilles in a certain way. When you train with your knee bent, you're actually hitting the other calf muscle and your Achilles in a different way. And both muscles have different functions at different speeds of running, movement. and in deceleration as well. They're supporting. So you can see simple calf raises I can do before games, before training, before you go out and do your fitness or your conditioning sessions. Those are vitally, vitally important to you. And then work in the front side. This is another prep exercise. We didn't talk about shin splints, but to target that entire region from the knee down is extremely important for preparatory work. Now we move on a little bit further. These are absolute game changers. So eccentrics and isometrics. Again, as we talked about patella tendonitis, you've got to add load or weight to the tendon at some point. I can't just do body weight exercises forever and think that I'm going to solve a problem, okay? And you'll do the same things in a physical therapy clinic if you stay with them long enough. Now, again, you see different implements. So Smith machines are honestly my favorite for either or. Kettlebells, weight vests, dumbbells if you're in a hotel, whatever you have available in your home. There's a ton of different options to create load. And load doesn't mean that I have to add as much weight as humanly possible for the exercise, but these are just very targeted exercises for those regions. So the isometrics are timed holds. The eccentrics are lowering exercises. So I'll start at the top of a calf raise and move my way on back down. But if you can throw these into whatever you do year round, at least one time a week, but 2 to 3 times a week, you're really, really going to reap the benefits of this. And it's going to work up the chain. You're going to feel better at your knees when you change directions, when you stop and start, so on and so forth.
Hey, Austin, real quick. We got a question in the chat from Josh. He asked, how much time in theory should one stretch before the contest?
That's a very good question. You got to know your body. You got to know how much time that you do have allotted. But say it's a very open and you have as much time as you need. You have a great facility, so on and so forth. I think you can get everything done in roughly 20 minutes. If you want to take a little bit longer, if it's cold outside, please, by all means, do that. But I don't think you need to take more than 20 minutes if you know exactly what you're doing, if you know exactly your target spots and the places that you need to loosen up for the actions in game. If you're really targeted, 20 minutes is all you need. Hope that was helpful,
Awesome.
Sonny.
Good stuff, Austin. Thank you. I'll continue to share questions as they pop up in the chat.
Yeah, please. The more questions, the merrier, guys. And then the last one, as we're talking about Achilles prevention here, is plyometric training. So this is really the icing on top of the cake. This is really putting everything together in one. Warm-ups as part of circuits, which we'll talk about a little bit further later on. They could be also on separate days, but plyometrics, they don't have to be super high. They don't have to be depth jumps, but something that is really fast and explosive, because that's what you do as an official. You have to be explosive. You have to stop, start, change directions. Again, this is prepping that area for what you're going to do in game. This stuff is really, really important for you as an official. So I'm going to turn it back over to the panel. And Josh, again, thank you for your question and getting involved in the chat. All of you other officials, before we go into the panel, drop this down in the chat as well. Being on a structured strength training program helps you stay healthy. Let everybody in the group know, because this only helps every official that's here listening and every official that's here taking in this information. But as we turn it over to the panel, Don, do you want to go first on this one?
Yeah, happy to, man. This is kind of the icing for me. Look, 2 years ago, whatever it was, when I reached out to you, I have two major jobs as a state referee administrator in Tennessee. I have about 3,600 referees here that I oversee with a team, with an amazing team here in Tennessee. But it's our job, by and large, to be really visionaries. And one of the things we want to do was obviously try to mimic our professional referee organization as much as possible, therefore giving our top young officials the best avenue to get there. And this was one of them. And as a leader, I don't feel comfortable doing something of that nature without doing it myself. And I'll never forget this. When I first started with your program, I had tendonitis in my knee, obviously patella tendonitis, and we talked about that. And I'd been told by doctors, you got to rest it, and it's probably not going to heal. You're just going to have to deal with it. It's just going to hurt. And de-acceleration was the other part, when we obviously partnered with a GPS group that was able to give us that data. And I have seen myself personally hit up to 50 de-accelerations. That is anything from 8 miles an hour to a 0 stop in a game. So that's a ton of impact on your knees. And for somebody with patella tendonitis, that's horrible. It hurts. So I was dealing with that personally myself. And it's funny, because you actually came back and said, we can fix this. And literally 6 weeks to the day, when I started the program, to saying something to you about my knee to feeling the pain leave was the time frame. So it's just crazy to me. you know, look, it took isolation, it took work, it took a lot of painful mornings to make that happen. But knowing the right exercises, doing the right exercise, and being committed, knowing that there's an end result, is astronomical. And to be able to go into a season and actually referee, I tell people all the time, we have preseason, we have season. That's all we have anymore. At least for the soccer officials, you know, that we're so many games, so many opportunities to referee now. We're literally either preparing to referee or we're refereeing. And I think if we can isolate these opportunities to prevent injury or to take an injury and heal it, it is just daylight and dark. It's a massive difference for us. So for me personally, I was shocked, absolutely shocked. Again, don't have a problem saying so. I'm 51 years old, not getting any younger, and the players are always the same age if you're refereeing collegiately. You know, that never changes. So to be able to know I can run at pace with them, be on the field with them, have the same endurance, and not have an injury or hurt is just a game changer. So that would be my testimony to that. This one's really simple for me.
Hey,
Derek, do you want to answer this one next?
yeah, quick thing in there, Austin. Maybe we could turn off screen share while we go into the panel conversation, and we've got a lot of really great questions in the chat as well. But definitely want to hear from our panel.
Yeah.
Yeah, Austin, I'd love to. I wanted to answer one of the questions that somebody asked about pregame warm-up. You know, not trying to sell Austin's program here. I think it's phenomenal, but if you are a basketball referee, he has created a program that you can do in the locker room and that you can do on the floor, which I think is incredible, because I know a lot of referees that if you've seen in basketball, we do the couple of leg swings, we run down the court 2 times, and then we're ready to go. This is a dynamic warm-up that really gets your body ready to referee. So I just wanted to share that if you participate in this program. As far as a structured system, I have a kind of similar story to Don. I sprained my MCL at a referee camp, and I didn't know where to go from there. And that's when I met Austin, kind of talked to him. And it was simply because, you know, I had ended the season. And when I ended basketball season, I took a couple months off, no running, you know, right? You want to save the body or whatever we say. And I went to camp, you know, thought I was in shape. I was still working out, but I wasn't doing exercises for my body for refereeing. And I overloaded the system when I went to camp with the stress of camp and all those kinds of things. And that's when I hurt my knee. And, you know, it's been 3 years that I've known Austin. And ever since I started doing these exercises that I had never heard of, the Achilles stuff, the knee stuff, all these movements that I had no idea about, ever since I started doing that stuff, I've had 0 issues with my body. I feel in the best shape of my life. And as Don said, we keep getting older. They stay the same age. We got to keep up. And if you're not doing this kind of stuff year round, there's no just in-season training or, hey, I'm 2 weeks out of camp. I got to get ready for camp season. You need to be doing this all year long. And having his app and being structured, and for me, going into the gym and having a plan is so much better than just going into the gym and kind of freewheeling it and not knowing what to do.
Kellen, when you want to bring us on home before we move on?
But they took all the good points. No, seriously, there is no more preseason. There is no postseason. There is preseason and there is end season. So ditto to that, true. The stationary warm-ups, absolutely fantastic, because the locker room space that we get is quite inadequate most of the time, especially depending on the level you're working. So yeah, Runnin Refs helped me get ready for noon games in Miami, because those teams down there, they want to use that to their advantage. And dadgummit, if I got to be ready for 98 degrees plus 400% humidity getting a kickoff there. But yeah, this last season was really weird. I got hit a lot this last season, and I will swear to you that the workouts from Runnin Ref helped me push through the bumps and the bruises on that, and actually improved the pain as we were going through it. And I'm not sure I'd have made it through the season as well as I did. And here we are, we're in preseason for next year. For football, we're getting ready for camps, we're getting ready for clinics. If you're doing indoor, you're hopefully getting ready for that too. And it's on, it's always on. There's no real off anymore. So yeah, they took all my good points. Yeah, comment.
And tell them, just so everybody on this is aware, you are the best dressed here this evening.
Thank you. I teach middle school and I'm not doing the ref gig, so I had to look, I'm coming home from school.
All right, well, let's get back into this, everybody. So we're moving on to functional training for officials. Okay, so everybody has seen a lot of this. Bodybuilders, strongmen. These guys are some of the best in the world at what they do, about having the most muscle mass possible, being the strongest humans on the planet. But again, this isn't functional for officials. This isn't going to get you what you need as officials. Now, we can take a lot of concepts from it. We can learn from these guys how to build muscle mass. We can learn from the strongmen on how to work on specific areas that may be lacking, so on and so forth. But there's so many other needs that officials have. You can't spend all of your time, since you already have full-time jobs and families, and you work as many games as you do. You can't spend all of your time in the gym just doing strength training specifically. There has to be other things. So while this stuff is great, and I've learned so much from some of these people, this can't be all that you do in training. So let's talk a little bit about flexibility. What makes for functionality? Okay, so I want to make sure that everybody understands the difference between flexibility and mobility, and then how we compare those two together. So flexibility is more short term. Now, it's very, very important. So before the game, I definitely want to stretch. I need my body to get hot. I need my muscles to get warm. I need to get myself prepared. And again, everybody in this day and age understands dynamic warm-ups are better. Everybody knows that. That's no secret. But what happens when I just do flexibility and stretching is that after a short period of time, those muscles are going to go back to their normal resting length. So I'm not making any long-term changes here. That's my only knock with flexibility, is that I don't want to just sit and stretch every single night. I'm not making long-term changes, and that's what some officials may need. Okay, so as we move on to mobility, it's a little bit different. We're talking about joints more so than opposed to muscles. And yes, muscles attached to joints. But as we're going into mobility, I want to find the 3 biggest spots in my body I can make the biggest changes. So there's spaces that you want to be mobile. There's spaces you want to be stable. You're seeing a lot of ankle mobility exercises right there. The ankle joint is one that definitely needs to be mobile. Now you're seeing some different variations of hip mobility. This is specifically hip internal rotation, but the hip joint is the next one that has to be mobile. So when I start from the bottom and work my way up, the ankle has to be mobile, the knee needs to be stable, the hips need to be mobile, the low back needs to be stable. Now you see the upper back needs to be mobile, and obviously the neck needs to be stable once again. So it's called the joint by joint approach. And there's a couple different ways to go about it. But that's the difference in mobility, is when we're attacking with mobility, we want to create long-lasting changes. Well, once again, how do we make that happen? How do we make training more functional? And these are some of my favorite topics, because it doesn't matter what sport you officiate or you play, this stuff is very relevant. So making training more functional means that I need to have mobility and stability. Well, how I do that is I'm going to pair these mobility exercises. I'm just giving you a variety of them once again. You're seeing a vast variety of those. And then I want to take it into a strength training routine. So I want to open up the joint capsule. I want to lengthen things out. And then what I want to do is I want to do something that's strength training, because I need to apply load to that newfound range of motion. So with that being said, now I'm creating stability. So you saw the ankle mobility. Now you see me getting into deep knee bends here in an exercise such as a squat. Again, just an example here, but that gives you an idea of what it should look like of pairing the two, because without adding load afterwards, now that mobility work doesn't stick either, okay? And that's what we're looking for, is to make long-term changes to help you move better on the field or on the court. Now, the next one that I absolutely love, and some officials are always asking about contrast training and why we're doing all this jumping and just different stuff like that. During strength training, here's what happens. Your muscles are consistently under tension. They're contracting really hard. You're working hard, but this disrupts the natural coordination patterns of your muscles. They have to be able to contract and relax at a very good speed. And the thing that separates elite athletes over average athletes is this right here, the ability to contract and relax at a rapid pace. So this is going to lead to a lot of injuries. I've just thought about this over and over. I've talked to many physical therapists, high-level physiologists and coaches, and this just keeps coming, and it's burned in my brain now that we have to have this ability to do so. So how do we do that? Add something explosive right after you do a strength movement, okay? And I'll give you some examples in a minute, but this is going to reestablish that pattern and the coordination of my muscles to contract and relax once again. And it's just extremely, extremely impactful for officials. So let's take a look here at how athletes would do something like this. Again, these are all examples. You don't have to do every single one. It doesn't mean that I have to use a barbell. I don't have to put a barbell on my back or max out a deadlift to do so. But these are examples. This is how athletes contrast train. You're going to see this guy go into a deep squat. Now, that was relatively heavy for him. He's going to immediately go into something explosive and do a series of jumps. Jump, jump. Now he's reestablishing that coordination pattern. He's helping himself out. Now you see it in a different way. You're going to see a deadlift. That guy was obviously feeling himself a little bit. He turns that into a jump. Upper body. We can do this too. It's not just the lower body thing that matters, okay? Now, these are pretty crazy plyo push-ups, but you get the idea. You understand where we're coming from with this, okay? You have a lot of options to do things like this. All right, so that's how athletes do it, but how can officials do it? Again, if we're looking at the commandments for proper contrast training, number one is safety. Again, so I don't have to max out a deadlift. I can do a goblet squat. But then what do I want to do after that goblet squat? I want to do something that's explosive. If you can't jump on a 26-inch box, jump on the ground, jump on a lower box. But number one is safety. The next thing would be you want to pick similar movements, okay? So if I'm doing lunges right now, what I want to do is pick an exercise that's very close to that. And I'm going to do split squat jumps. Now, if you can't jump very high or you don't want to, you don't have to. The idea is to do something a lot faster that will give your body the ability to contract and relax once again and set yourself back apart. Plyo push-ups. I'm not doing crazy push-ups. I'm barely coming off the ground, but the speed of movement is much faster, and that's the whole point. That's what I want you to understand here, okay? Next topic, I think everybody is interested in. We got a lot of people that were messaging about this. How can we truly build muscle? Number one, you got to train consistently. I can't expect to get any healthier just from eating vegetables one time per week. I can't expect to get hydrated after just taking a couple sips of water. Training is no different. I got to train consistently to do some of these things. So whatever your goals are, here are some of the keys that are going to help you get there. Number one, you got to get enough volume. This is a phenomenal book that I read years ago, and this guy is a doctor. He's put out more research on muscle hypertrophy or muscle mass gain than anybody else in the world. Now, there's other people that have great stuff as well, but I read some of his research papers. I had to get into this book. What he says in the book is that 5 sets for muscle hypertrophy is the perfect range for that, okay? And then the other thing is you have to train the same muscle group more than 1 time per week. What he suggests in the book is 2 times per week. So if I want my triceps really to grow, I need to hit them hard twice a week. 3 is a bonus, and he did say this in the book. 4 gets to be a little bit overkill at some level, okay? But it depends on a couple different factors. Now, the other thing is you have to increase the load on the barbell, right? Or the dumbbells, the machine stack, whatever you may be using. So we're talking in terms of officials, gradually increasing the weight. I'm not asking anybody ever to, go from just starting out as a beginner or somebody getting back into the weight room and throw 200 pounds on the bar right away. That's not safe. Once again, we have to be safe. But you have to give the muscle some stress so that it can regrow and rebuild itself. Toning will not build muscle. So I'm sorry if that hurts anybody's feelings, but toning is not how we're going to build muscle, okay? Muscular endurance falls more under the lines of toning than muscular growth are. They're completely different concepts. So here we go. Compound movements are barbells, dumbbells. They are the major movements. They can tolerate the most weight. They have the most range of motion, so on and so forth. But isolation exercises are very, very important for building muscle as well. So don't think that just because we're talking about major movements and being athletic, that if you want to build some muscle in certain areas, that bicep curls may not help you, right? Or that targeting your hamstrings a little bit more may not help develop your posterior chain a little bit better. Both of those are very, very important for you. Now, here's a chart that I'm going to leave up for a second. I'm sure people want to take a picture of it, but again, we will send this recording out. This is set, rep, and rest prescriptions. I think this could be very, very valuable to giving you some guidance in your training, okay? So these 3 guys at the bottom, 𝐬𝐧𝐠, Schoenfeld, and Prilepin, have dove in for decades and provided tons of strength training research. They have wonderful books. You can look them up online. There's probably some YouTube stuff, but they all have come up with, charts, and they've compiled this so that we have the access to utilize it. So now it's just saying, hey, I want to build muscle mass. I stay between 3 and 4 sets, 6 to 12 plus reps. Now the rest time is important too, but don't let that be the end all be all, okay? If you are short on time and you need to hurry a little bit, it's okay. You don't have to take the full 90 seconds rest. And if you're like me, I can't sit still, so I probably don't hit those rest times like I should anyway. So last question here for the group, okay, is anybody wants to, once again, dive into the chat, let us know anything else that you have for us. We want everybody to think about how important training year-round is for you as an official. And I think Derek did have to leave early. I think he might have had a game tonight. I don't know whose turn it is now. Don, do you want to lead off one more time for one last question? You're muted, I think.
Sorry about that. Give me the question again now, just one more time, just so I get it right.
How important is training year-round for you as an official? I think you did hit on that, so we need to defer with
Yeah,
that.
I just wanted to make sure I was right. I thought that's where we were going with this. Look, there's no, and Kellum and Derek even talked about it earlier. There's no off time anymore, guys. It doesn't exist. At least I know from a soccer referee standpoint, that just does not exist. There are times in the season when we have less opportunities to be on the field, but those are opportunities for us to recover, to fix issues that may have arisen during the season, or to get stronger. Like I am technically in as much of an off season as I could have right now, even though I have a fitness test coming up in a week. It's one of those. It's like I went from a season that went all the way to the middle of December, and I've got a fitness test at the end of January. I know our pro referees are also doing the same thing. Their fitness tests are coming up literally next weekend. So when you look at an off season, what are you really preparing for? Are you preparing for next season? Are you preparing for a fitness test? There's no off seasons anymore. So yeah, year-round training is absolutely a must. And I think that's one of the cool things about the app is, and Austin works hard to make sure through Runnin Ref that we have that. So that we are during season doing things that we should be doing during the season that continues to help us grow and get better, and to isolate those areas that are impacted the most. But then in our off season, we are gaining versus going backwards. Because if you stop and just literally take a break anymore, you're behind the eight ball. Like that's the honest God truth I could give you. Kellum, I'm not going to take every thunder from you this time. I'll leave a little bit for you, buddy.
That's pretty much all done. It's gone. Yep, it's gone. Yeah. I totally agree. And I'm not using Runnin Ref to, become the buffest guy at the event. Would love to find the skinny official that I apparently ate. But definitely we're not going to, be that ripped muscular guy. But maintaining consistency. And that just goes into life too, being consistent in anything you do. But yeah, it's definitely year-round training and just being consistent with it. So when you do get that phone call, you're like, yes, sir, I'll be there. And I'm going to, look the best I can look, and I'm going to be in the best position that I can be to earn that opportunity to work that level. So totally agree. You can, there's no off-season mindset anymore. That's all gone. Thanks, Austin. And so yeah, just putting it all together and getting preseason and in season and working through it.
Thank you, guys. Alan,
Hey,
we
Austin.
have
Austin, can I touch on that just real quick, please?
yes.
Look, I've got a really, really dear friend of mine, and he is probably one of the top 5 collegiate consigners in the country. And I won't mention any names. I can just, if you're a soccer referee, just pick one of the 5. You're going to be fine. You'll be in that category. And I'm saying it's a he, so that narrows it down a little bit too. One of the things he said, because he's also a basketball official, his opportunity came at the moment he least expected it. So if I'm talking to officials right now, I don't care what sport you're in, baseball, basketball, volleyball, soccer, it doesn't matter. The sport is irrelevant. You must be prepared for the moment. And Kellum, I'm leading back on what you just said. You must be prepared for that moment the phone rings. His phone rang in the middle of the night driving back home, and he ended up in the Final Four. If you're not prepared, you don't make it there. And that's how important year-round training is. Thanks for bringing that up, Kellum.
Yeah, thank you, guys. Those are good points that I hope everybody's taking into account. So I know that we are, I was talking for quite a while, so I apologize to anybody who wants to call me a liar and say that it's already 6:45. If you need to go, please go. I would like to go through the rest of this. Alan also asked this question, so these are good things, but I will try to keep it a little bit shorter and a little bit more concise, so maybe we have some time to answer a couple questions with whatever we have left. But
hey, Austin,
again, thank you.
yeah, Austin,
Yeah.
on that point too, perhaps first of all, we will make the recording available, right?
Yes, absolutely.
And then also perhaps we'll find time for a follow-up where we can really dive deeper, because we're getting a lot of questions from folks in the chat. So that's just something to consider as well.
Yeah, that could be great. Yeah, if anybody has to leave, we completely understand. I did tell you guys, 6:45. Sometimes I just get to talking and I get, passionate about this stuff, and I enjoy teaching. And when you're asking great questions, it's really easy for me to keep talking about the things that I know are going to make you a better official. But there's 4 exercises for sure that we want to avoid, and I feel very strongly about these. So I'll tell you why and give you some substitutions. Box squats. I am not a huge fan of these. It provides a ton of shear on the spine. It's really, really not good on all those facets. Powerlifters have done it forever, but that doesn't mean it's right. You see other people do it in the gym, so you think it's right. But what people tend to tell you is that it builds the hips. That may be true. It has some muscular effects, right? You're lifting weights. But there's other things that you can do, again, for risk versus reward, like an official should. So hip thrust, deadlifts, squats of different, types, RDLs. There's different machines that you can do, external machines, and those have a ton of benefits for your hips as well. So just listen a little bit whenever we talk about these exercises to avoid, because I don't want any officials, I don't want to hear about anybody hurting their back, especially not doing a box squat. You're an official. Be the best athlete you can and build your hips in different ways, okay? The next one that we're going to dive into, if you've been following us all on social media, I've kind of destroyed this one a little bit lately. Bench dips. Literally couldn't be one of the worst things you could ever do for your shoulder. This is a labrum tear waiting to happen. So what happens here, and if you watch the shoulder joint, okay, the ball is coming to the edge of the socket, okay? So whenever I go down, what people tend to say is, oh, it's a great body weight exercise. And again, sometimes people don't know what to do in the gym, and that's okay. It burns my triceps. It burns the front of the shoulder. But what's happening is that ball is coming to the edge of the socket, and it's starting to separate a little bit. Well, if you don't know, your bicep tendon runs across the front and it attaches to the labrum, something that we want to stay away from if at all possible. So what can I substitute with that? Because I'm trying to build my triceps here. I can do tricep extensions. I can do other pressing exercises. There's a variety of things. I can do regular dips. Regular dips can be beneficial for you because the ball doesn't have to pop to the edge of the socket. So when you're doing that exercise or when you're watching these videos, just pay attention and be mindful of the direction that the ball is going to the edge of the socket, okay? The next one now that we'll get into, if I can load here, guys. Upright rows, okay? This also is not a favorite of mine. Again, sometimes people do this because they see other people doing it and it doesn't matter. You're seeing cable machines, you're seeing empty barbells, what that guy was doing. But what's happening when the elbow crosses the shoulder joint, you're giving yourself a little bit of impingement in the AC joint, okay? So the A is the acromion, the C is the clavicle, so your collarbone, okay? There's a space between those two, and every time you're doing an upright row, you're closing that space down, which can be causing inflammation and impingement in your shoulder, and it's just not good for you, right? So what are some other things that I can do? I can do specific delt work, because that's what people are getting out of this exercise is delt work and upper back work. So I can do rear delt raises, rear delt tees, and reverse flies. I can do face pulls. I can do lateral delt exercises. So there's a ton of substitutions that you could do in place of these, all right? And then the last one that we're going to get to here is, this is more so a category than anything else, okay? We're going to put hip flexion, so hip bending ab exercises into this category, all right? The biggest 2 problems I have with this is it's really stressing the hip flexors more than we want them to, because the hip flexor's job is not to supply my abs. And we're also working on what we call the top layer or the rectus abdominis, which are my show ab muscles. Now, that sounds good in theory, but they don't have any benefit to me. And actually, if you look at, you can Google this, the military has stopped doing so many sit-ups, okay, because of all the repetitive stress that it causes on some people's low backs. So we can substitute some of these exercises for deeper core and torso movements. We're trying to work the deeper muscles that really support the spine and that connect the hips to the opposite side of the body, okay? Your body works in a big X, and that's what you're looking for when you do core and torso stability exercises. So there's a lot of variations of, banded anti-rotation stuff. There's different kettlebell walks that you can do, or carries, as they say, with 2 dumbbells, with 1 dumbbell. Planks are phenomenal exercises. You can do some dynamic stuff as well, and you can find ways to burn your abs if that's a feeling that you like. But I just would stay away from a lot of hip bending over and over and over, repetitive. And I want to find some exercises that truly train something that's going to make me a better athlete, more stable, and a better official, okay? As we're wrapping this up, everybody, we're very, very thankful for you coming in here with us. We wanted to give something exclusive to you guys. If you go to runninref.com, choose your sport, and use the code LOVEYOUROfficials, we get 1 free month of training for all new members. This QR code is very easy. You snap it, you can move on, and go about your business. Thank you again for tuning in. The next webinar topic that we want to run with, and Sony mentioned we have a ton of questions in the chat, so maybe we do something in between. We'll have to talk about that and figure that out and see what other questions arise in the days coming. But the next topic, we want to go into fitness for officials. So our goal is to do one of these quarterly. We really want to make them good ones. I don't want to just run these out all the time and just make them so. I want you guys to really get a ton of value from these and become a better official. If there's anything you need, just reach out to me. My email address is right there. More than happy to take all your questions, send you some YouTube links, send you some, answers, so on and so forth. But, follow us on social media. If there's any questions or concerns you have, or any exercises that you want to know about, we're more than happy to help you guys out. We just want to keep trying to spread the word about Runnin Ref and how we're trying to help officials become better and better all the time. I don't know how many people are still here, but if there's any questions, I will stay on as long as Sony and our wonderful Ref Master friends will allow us to, and answer any questions that we can. Otherwise, thank you guys so much for tuning in, and we hope to see you guys again next time.
This is awesome stuff. This is such incredible value for all of us out there. If you haven't been in the Runnin Ref program, I would highly recommend that you take advantage of that 1-month trial. Everyone that I've spoken to that has done this program has nothing but the highest of things to say about it. And we are just very fortunate to have access to all of this. There have been a couple of questions in the chat. Let's go to the end of the hour. But then Austin, I do think we should consider if the people are demanding it, potentially we come and we do a Q&A. It could be a short Q&A between now and the next one. Rona had a really interesting question, and I'm going to selfishly raise it to the top because I've wondered this myself. She said, I recently started wearing a knee compression sleeve because my knee felt funny after working a long weekend of basketball a few months ago. Will my knee become dependent on the sleeve? Should I only wear it when it feels funny or every time I officiate?
Good question. Okay, so the thicker and the more supportive it is, yes, the more dependent you're going to get on it, okay? If I'm wearing a huge, big brace like you may see offensive linemen wear, or people that are recovering from ACL injuries, just something that is big, at some point you have to get away from that. You have to strengthen the muscles around it. You have to run, you have to cut, you have to change directions for your body to go back to either what it was or hopefully better in the future. So I think yes. Now, if it's for a short period of time and you're doing some things around it, physical therapy, if you are strength training around it, you're working on your movements and mobility, your soft tissue around it, I think that you will get away from that and it'll solve itself a little bit. But obviously there's a lot there. We could really, really dive deep, but we'd have to connect a lot of dots. I just think the thicker something is, the more supportive it is, the more that you're going to become dependent upon it, Rona. I'm sorry. I hope that I got one of those two right.
I love that. It's a great question there again. Thank you for that. Joe had a question also. He said weight loss versus toning versus strength training, any crossover in the exercises. And I like this question because it's like we live in a have-it-all world. Don't make me choose between one of those three. Like, can I do all of them? Kind of was how the question felt to me. Interested in your perspective on that, Austin.
Joe, I hope that you are still on here. When it comes to this question, yes, I think you can get some crossover for all of it, right? If I get in better shape, I will lose some weight, right? And my body will start to morph and change a little bit. If I do strength train, yes, I'm going to build muscle, but also the metabolic cost of strength training is pretty high. So I'm naturally going to be able to get rid of some of that as well. So the toning part, I know that I, kind of really hit that earlier and tried to knock it out of the park, but I was trying to make a point that muscle growth and toning are two different things. Once you start to build lean muscle mass, you eat correctly, your diet's on point, you're in good physical shape, that toned look or that lean muscular physique that you're looking for will appear itself right in front of you.
Great answer on that. Now, we've got a question from Armando, and we've seen other questions in the chat kind of around, like, how often should I do this? How often should I do that? My default answer to that, Austin, is, well, if you're in the Runnin Ref program, he'll tell you exactly how often to do everything. but suffice to say, is there anything more on that topic, just at least at a high level, that you could speak to, like with Armando asking about how often to rest if we're doing a 3-mile jog?
Yeah, I think, Armando, correct me if I'm wrong in the chat, I believe that you are a soccer official. I think we've connected recently in the fitness challenge and the Ref Master space. But I'll be honest, I'm not a huge fan of jogging. I'm really, really not. I think that it can give you some benefits. If you just say, hey, I'm going to go out for a casual jog, some anxiety relief, some stress relief, I just need to go out and do something, that's wonderful. Basketball official, okay, I apologize for that. But I think that the repetitive heel striking and the poor mechanics don't transfer into your game. I think that you can get in shape in other ways. You can accumulate volume and mileage in other ways. Again, if you need that for personal reasons, I think please, by all means, go and do it. I think that you've got to add a speed element. So interval training of some kind of running has to be in there. But yes, some longer runs, but just straight 3 miles doesn't do a lot, in my opinion. If you are going to run a 3-mile jog, though, depending upon how you feel the next day, I think will determine how much rest you need. If you're really sore, if you're really beat up, I think that the following day, maybe that you don't rest quite as, or that you need some more rest. But if you feel pretty much fresh, you can go again. Alternate doing bike and machine, I think that can work, right? If you, in 3-day span, you jog your 3 miles, you do a bike workout, and then some type of machine workout, cardiovascularly, you are going to get your heart rate up for a long period of time. So that can be effective if that's the goal, is cardiovascular shape.
And I know we're coming up to the hour here, because I do want to take one more question. Austin, I think if you could give a quick word to the fitness challenge that you've been hosting to great success, and also a final word from our panel as well. Last question, it was put earlier in the chat, Malachi Moore, MLB umpire and co-head of Ref Masters University Baseball, he asked about stretching for sciatica issues, and that's probably, we could do a whole session on this topic probably, right? So if there's just a high level thought or two on that before we start to wrap up, would love to hear your thoughts on it.
Yeah, I'm going to default and tell you, don't try to just stretch your back, because Malachi, I hope you're still in this, correct me if I'm wrong, but the more you stretch your hamstrings, the more you bend over, you're going to feel good right away. But that's a sensation, and it goes away, and the back pain comes back. More times than not, that's what you get. I would personally start on the front side of my body. So I would work on my hip flexors and do some soft tissue therapy on those. I would work on, I can send you a couple videos and some different things. I know that we got to wrap this up, but I would focus on my hips more so, and then core and torso stability to support that spine. Those are the two things: hip flexors, core and torso stability exercises would be my number 1 and number 2 things that I would suggest right away.
Awesome. Thank you for giving us a word on that. Before we wrap up with our panel, and last words from yourself as well, just tell the group real quick about the fitness challenge. It's been going really awesome the last week and a half or so.
We are into our second week of the fitness challenge here in the Ref Masters app. It is a completely free challenge for everybody. All we are doing in this challenge is posting pictures or workouts, exercises, and food each day. Okay, you get 2 points if you post a picture of a workout or a video, and you get 1 point for a healthy meal option. Oh, I thought we were kicked off here, Sony. And we have a challenge. It's just a short 3-week challenge. And what we're trying to do is create an environment where not only are officials being accountable, but we're creating habits. That's the biggest thing for officials right now, is to create more and more better habits around health, fitness, well-being. And, it's really, really inspiring to see all these officials that are posting daily. And some of them are getting pretty competitive. We have a couple guys in here and gals that are really running up the totals. Me and Sonia are going to have to go back and really do some serious counting to figure out who wins, because some people are posting multiple times a day, and quite a few of these officials have been in here. There's Armando as we speak. He was getting after it as he does every single day. So yeah, the fitness challenge was awesome. It's the Runnin Ref space and the Ref Masters app for all of you guys. We're going to continue doing some challenges. This one is going phenomenal. We're getting a lot of participation and just trying to create more and more good habits around health, wellness, and fitness for our officials.
Thanks for that. Highly encouraged. Even though we've been a week and a half into it, it's never too late to start on healthy habits, and being part of the community of folks that are sharing it has been really awesome for me personally. I've had some days where I'm like, and then I look in the feed and I see someone else is like taking the extra effort to get out and get a little exercise. I'm like, okay, I'm going to do it. So, as we wind down here, maybe go from final words from our panel, and then we'll end with you, Austin. How about we start with Kellum for final words, so that we don't take all of the words from him?
No, that's not a problem at all. Thanks for the opportunity to share my experiences with Running Ref. It's been an absolute game changer to my preseason and in-season working out and readiness, and it's been fantastic. I've been on it a little over a year. In all of the officiating that I've done, I've dropped 100. And we're hoping to do a couple 10 more via the Running Ref. And, you know, as Austin will probably say, let's get to running.
That's great. Thanks for sharing that, Kellum. Let's go, Don.
Yeah, look, guys, first and foremost, Sony, Austin, thanks for having me tonight. I really appreciate it, at least for myself and from the state of Tennessee. Thank you. We love having Austin as a partner in Tennessee. That's a huge part. We look forward to seeing him next weekend here in Tennessee. So thank you for that. If I had anything to say to end this, look, seriously, accountability is everything. We do sweat checks in Tennessee. It's something I started. Whatever you want to call it. You can do whatever you want, but accountability is everything. When we hold each other accountable, that is so important. Look, players 30 years ago, athleticism was 30 years ago of athleticism. Players' athleticism today is way different. They are at the highest point they can possibly be right now. And we don't get breaks. Kellum said it earlier. We don't get a substitute. Nobody comes in and takes our place. So our athleticism has to be better than theirs. And if you're not applying something, then you're missing. You're not looking to go to the next level. If you want to go to the next level, you have to apply something. Personally, we're partnered with Austin. We're always going to support that, but do something, man. Hold yourself accountable and push yourself to the next level. That would be the two things we'd leave you with from here in the great state of Tennessee.
Thank you. Really, that's really good motivation and a good reminder for us, Don. Before I pass it to you, Austin, we encourage you to participate in the fitness challenge here. If you're a basketball, football, or baseball official, we also encourage you to check out the general discussion. We have pro sports officials across those three sports. Soccer's coming soon, but across baseball, basketball, football, join in the conversation. We've got Brandon Cruz, NFL referee, James Williams, Kane Fitzgerald, NBA. We've got Malachi Moore, Brennan Miller, MLB, and they're sharing stuff every single day. We have members in our community from over 35 countries around the world talking about the craft of officiating. It's free to be here in this app, so we just encourage you to stick around, and hopefully Austin will get him back here pretty soon for a follow-up session as well. But all of that is to say, thank you so much for being part of this. Austin, I'll pass it to you for the final word.
Yeah, just thank you everybody for showing up tonight. Not just for me, but for you guys, right? This is for you, and we only get better based on the feedback that you give us. So if there's more questions that you have, please email them to me, send them through the app, just get them to us somehow. And we'd be more than happy to answer those or do something follow-up. If there's anything that you need, please, don't hesitate to reach out. We only want to help officials be the best you can. So if there's anything we can do for you, let us know, and have a great night. Thank you guys for joining us.